step back three for the tie. Oh, he's done it again. They get it to him. More in space. A burst of speed. A first down for Purdue. He's still going. More. Cuts back. Touchdown. Each one more.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode. Russ is malfunctioning right now. To another episode of the Boiler Express podcast. I am your host, Ultimate Boiler. It's great to be back. I did take last week off, but
thank God you're back. Thank God. Hosting's hard, guys. It's difficult. I'll never do it
that
again.
was the problem.
But it's great to be back. And definitely needed that break. And also shout out to everybody on Twitter, Purdue fans, IU fans, even that have been in my DMs, my messages, just in the response to that tweet I made about my wife and everything that she's going through. Really appreciate that. Just awesome to see all the support and everything. So very, very much appreciative of that. Can't thank you guys enough for that. And it's a bittersweet episode. I'm really excited to be back. Sucks to have to talk about what we're going to talk about today. We all had really high hopes coming into the season, or coming into the NCAA tournament. Of course, we had, at the beginning of the season as well. And to see the way it ended, it sucked. Like, that's just what it is. It is what it is. It sucked. Nobody thought that was going to be the case. But it is what it is. It happened. It still doesn't feel real, by the way. Like, I'll open my ESPN app and I'll see that score. And it doesn't feel real. But it is what it is. It happened, and we're going to talk about
out
it.
Here sipping wine like he's classy.
Yeah. Frank, the big brain stat tank. So sorry about that. So, that game you guys all probably know where did you guys watch the game? Where were you all at? Where were you when Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson?
I don't even think I remember it.
I was at my house, surprisingly sober. And
that's good for you, Russ. I'm
Chris. Cool. Those are fighting words.
Yikes.
No, I was at the house, and honestly, I just watched the game, and even in the group chat, I kept saying, I was like, it's okay, we'll figure it out, fine.
You were very positive in the group chat.
I usually am. That's kind of my MO. But honestly, like when the final horn sounded, I just sat there for my wife was like on TikTok or something. I just sat there and looked at the screen. I'm like,
yeah, I watched that game with my wife as well. So I blamed her for the loss. Because anytime I watch Purdue by myself, they usually win. So that's on me, mostly my wife, but that's definitely on me too.
Much respect to your wife, but her ass isn't allowed near a TV during a Purdue game.
Right. And I told her so her first football game ever was the Tyler Trent Ohio State game a few years ago. And I was like, I can't take you back. Like, I don't know how it gets any better than that. So you're up here. I don't know. We can't get it any better than that, honestly, unless, of course, this year, when Purdue goes 12-0, but that's for another podcast.
Amen. Speak into existence, David.
That's right. But yeah, I was sitting at home as well. And, it was one of those things we talked about it before the tournament even started. It's like, oh yeah, typically, the games start off pretty close. And then the one seed or the better team pulls away. And that just didn't happen. And it really sucks too, because of the pregame comments made by that coach, Toby, what's his name? From Fairleigh Dickinson. Talking about how he's watched Purdue. He knows how to beat them. And they did. They beat Purdue. They swarmed Zach Edey, and they made everybody else try to beat him. And it worked out in their favor. So, Frank, what were your thoughts on the game?
credit to Mr. Tobin in his comments. He was just hired by Iona, so
You're welcome.
It was a really big deal for him. I feel like we've springboarded a lot of coaches' careers. Honestly, Chris Beard. He was the coach at Little Rock.
Oh wow, I
Without
forgot
that
about
win,
that.
That's what Anish said too.
yeah, without that win
Yeah,
for him,
yeah,
does he
Anish fired off
get
that
that job
too.
at
Pretty
Texas Tech. And
good.
that was a game, that where a guy hit a half court shot. It was his first 3 of his career, to send that game to overtime. That Little Rock game, but I thought that they came with a good game plan. Them being Fairleigh Dickinson, and they came, wanting to double, sometimes triple, sometimes even quadruple Edie and dare someone else to beat us. And Fletcher, had double-digit points, but we just didn't shoot the ball well. I think we were 5 for 26. Had something like 17 turnovers, most of which were unforced. I thought we handled the press pretty well. And as Painter said after the game, we can't afford to not shoot well and turn the ball over. It's like we can do one or the other.
Yeah.
And Purdue rebounds like 40% of their misses. So when you come down and you turn the ball over, you're not even getting up a shot. You're not even giving Edie an opportunity to get a quick, easy putback. You're just not setting yourself up for success there. But I think from a game plan standpoint, Purdue had a very good game plan. When your problem is you miss wide open threes the entire game, like you had a pretty good game plan. And so on a given night, 4 or 5 more of those threes go in. It's not even a game at that point. But I think Robbie Hummel said it best for anyone who hasn't heard what Robbie Hummel.
Yeah, and we actually, Frank, I am hearing word that Robbie is ready to be on the podcast here momentarily. So
confirmed.
Whenever we can get that connected here, Robbie, take it away.
Not complicated. If you shoot the ball the way they did from 3 and go 5 of 26,
right.
And Fairleigh Dickinson's game plan is not complicated. It's throw 4 people around Zach Edey.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let him post and make everybody else beat you. And I don't mean this to be in a disrespectful way, but Purdue's shooting and their shooters were shooting shots that you would shoot in horse. A lot of them are wide open.
Yep.
Wide open shots.
Yep.
So people are crushing Coach Painter, and I get it. The buck stops with him because he is the head basketball coach. He recruits the team. He coaches the team. But as a player, if you're getting wide open shots, your coach is doing something right at the same time. They are wide open. Wide open. Now, the press break stuff, that's a different story. I don't understand why the press gives them so much trouble at times. Sometimes at the Big Ten tournament, Bruce Weber and I were sitting there watching, and it was like guys were catching and refusing to turn to actually break the press. You got to be a player too, and the coaching's important, but you got to play. And 5 of 26 is the story. 16 turnovers is the story. But honestly, Zach Edey just didn't get enough help, and that's what stinks. But they were missing wide open shots.
I couldn't agree more, Robbie. And thank you for your time, Rob. We'll catch you next time. Good friend of the Boiler Express podcast. Appreciate your time for being on here. I know you're a busy guy, so
we're about to get shut
down. So yeah, man, that game, Robbie said it best. We just couldn't hit those open shots. And there's a lot of different theories on that. Some people think the game plan should have been changed, shouldn't have taken as many threes, maybe should have gotten into the 2-point range a little bit more. Some people think that it's the basketball. So what are your guys' thoughts on that?
A lot of coaches on Twitter. I mean, there are a ton of Division I coaches on Twitter, I found out the last few days, and they all think they're right in every different way, but none of them are. Not a single one.
Yeah, I'm going to let the dude who makes $4 million a year make these decisions. I don't think I agree with Frank. I don't think the game plan was bad. And I crack my knuckles for a second.
Man.
I got kind of like bring myself down because I'm very hyped. But and Frank said it the other day. The throw it to Edey because he's a foot taller than everyone else is the laziest damn excuse ever. Because if you watch the game, when there's 3 dudes there and their arms are up by where his arms or where his hands are, it is hard to catch the ball, and then boom, they're turning the ball over. Then everybody's like, "Whoa, turnovers." So, no, I like what we did. If we make 4 3-pointers, this is a non-issue.
So to counter that, if he is I mean, he was a foot taller than those guys. He has a 7'8" wingspan. So even if they do have their hands up, if he's got his hands up too, why is it hard for him to catch it?
Well-
Because he's not jumping like they are. Like they can just jump up and swat at it, or
Right.
he's got to focus in on that ball coming into his hands. And if he's off balance, that whole thing can get
Yeah.
kind of cattywampus. And yeah, Dylan, like the word.
That was a good one.
Yeah, where those guys don't have to worry about focusing in on catching the ball. They just have to swat and get him out of whack.
Yeah.
And the pressure is way more on Edie, even though he's a foot taller, compared to the guys that are just causing havoc for him.
Yeah, and to that point too, even if he does catch it in the post when he's got 3 or 4 guys on him, if they're all surrounding him on each side, he can't. There's no way for him to take a pivot. He can't go anywhere. So he's literally stuck there and has to dish it out and then hope somebody hits that shot. Whether it's a 3, they drive to the lane, whatever it is. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, that's.
I think it's important to distinguish the difference between could we pass it to Edie in a triple team versus should we pass it to Edie in a triple team. I mean, I think the answer is no. I think if Edie's getting triple teamed, that you have at least one guy, sometimes 2 guys wide open on the perimeter, and all those guys are capable of hitting that shot. They just collectively didn't go in. So, like, could we have passed it to Edie more toward down the stretch? Yeah, but I stand by the school of thought of you keep shooting open threes. So could we? Yes. I don't know if we necessarily should have, in my opinion, but yeah, I've heard that a lot. Why don't we just pound it inside to Edie and letting him go to work, there at the end? And I just think if they're going to leave, Fletcher Lawyer wide open, we need him to shoot.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
And I'm not gonna lie. Well, sorry, I got a jumble of my thoughts there. I had a couple coming in at the same time. Number one, I think we did let Edie eat. I mean, he had 21 points, 22 points, 15 rebounds. He's putting up NBA 2K numbers against Fairley. Robbie, our friend, a good friend of the podcast, calls it Farley. To be determined, Dickinson. So I think we did let Edie. I think he carried that team, especially in the second half. Yeah, and it sucked too because man, I wanted Fletcher to start hitting those so bad. I mean, I wanted all of them to go in, but especially Fletcher. He's just been on that. He's been in kind of that rut for a little bit now, and he hit one when I think it was like we were down 5 with like 2 minutes left. He hit that 3, and I was like, oh my god, let's go. Let's not forget that Fletcher Lawyer is also the same guy that has been struggling. Is also the same guy that hit 1 game winner against Ohio State, almost hit another. I mean, he did hit it. It was almost the 2nd game winner against Rutgers. That dude's got ice in his veins. It just wasn't his day that day. And you could say the same thing for a lot of the guys on the team too. It just wasn't our day. The game plan it just didn't happen. Yeah, God, I just hated it for him, man, because you could just tell they all wanted it so bad. And I know we all say that, it hurts the players more than us as fans. And
I still make the argument that after last season, the guys kind of locked in on defense. And we saw that with the KenPom numbers. Like the defense was wildly better than it was last year.
Mhm.
And this year we had issues with the 3, and we come back next.
But I think just looking through the numbers, Mason Gillis 1 for 7 from 3. I mean, that's very, very abnormal for him. Fletcher Lawyer 3 for 8. I mean, it was nice to see him hit 3. Braden 1 for 6. David Jenkins 0 for 2. Ethan Morton 0 for 2. I mean, it's just so atypical.
Yeah, especially
all
because
the
last 3
shots,
games, Jenkins and Newman had went off.
And as Painter said, there was only 1 3 that he could recall that he didn't necessarily agree with from a shot selection standpoint. It was just. And how many times did we say this season? It's like this team's able to grind it out when they're not hitting, and we just couldn't grind it out enough this particular night.
Yeah, it's crazy to to look at the record at the end of the year, 29-6, and then also followed up with and this team lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. That's just wild. But not to focus so much on one singular game. I know it's the last game of the year. It's the tournament. It's got all the hype. It's got all the emotion behind it. But God, what a fun year it was, though. We were expected to finish middle of the pack. Nobody, I mean, we had Raphael Davis on here earlier, and he had faith in Purdue. He had faith in Braden Smith. He had faith in those guys, but he didn't think, not that he didn't think it, but he didn't flat out say, Purdue was going to finish the top of the table, sweep everybody. I mean, they didn't sweep everybody, but win the league by 3 games. And then go on to win the tournament itself, the conference tournament. I mean, what an incredible season though it was. I mean, yeah, the way it ended sucks, but I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, it's sort of the yin and the yang. The reason why this sucks so much for Purdue fans is because we had such a great season.
Yeah.
If we had an up and down season, or a 500 season, or we barely creeped our way into the tournament, this first round loss definitely wouldn't sting as bad. But I think the worst part of it for me is that we did what everyone said we were going to do. A lot of people were saying Purdue shouldn't be a 1 seed. Purdue's struggling. Purdue is not the team that they think they are, or the selection committee thinks they are. And I mean, as some said, we were the most hated 1 seed ever, it seemed. And then we get to the tournament, and then that happens. So we have further continued the narrative that we choke in March and that we shouldn't have been a 1 seed. And I mean, it's no one's saying Arizona shouldn't have been a 2 seed. That's what I perceive as unfair. No one's saying Virginia shouldn't have been a 4 seed. No one's saying Kansas shouldn't have been a 1 seed. It just, we have this history that we just can't, we have this wall we can't seem to break through. And so given that, on a macro level, what should change? Should we recruit differently? Should we recruit more guards? Should we try to get away from this, sort of center-centric model that Painter has? What do you all think?
We need to not get a top 3 seed so that we're playing a Power 5 team all throughout the tournament. Because it seems like if we play traditional basketball matched up against anybody, Painter has proven he's pretty much one of the best coaches, if not the best, in the country at doing that. That's why people bring up the double-digit seeds that knock us off. It's something that we're not used to. They're usually throwing something completely different at us. And the thing about Fairleigh Dickinson is they are the shortest team, or they were the shortest team in the tournament. So it's kind of like going back to when we talked about Painter referring to doubling the post and then rotating afterwards. A lot of teams don't do that until they face us. So they're not great at us. So we get a ton of open looks. Well, Nebraska gave us trouble because they always double the post, right? So Fairleigh Dickinson is always used to being the shortest team and having to come up with something crazy to not only double and triple the post, but also rotate around and basically play the whole game like they just drank jet fuel. And they even did the, hockey style line changes where they're bringing 3-4 guys in at a time. So they can almost come in, run full blast, go take a breather, come back in, run full blast, go take a breather. And that just keeps them way fresh and makes it seem like there's 6 or 7 of them out there.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point, because I've heard Painter say that playing a Ken Palm 300 team doesn't help you at all. It only hurts you. Well, they were ranked 300th in Ken Palm when we played them. I mean, so maybe there is some,
and then there is,
well, it is a true thing. It's statistically proven in basketball that teams do perform up to their competition. They step up against tougher opponents, and they play more lax and carefree against weaker opponents. I mean, so yeah, maybe a number 1 seed isn't a good thing. And another question for the group here: at what point in the game did you start to question whether or not we could actually win? Was it at halftime? Was it with 5 to go? Was it in the first half?
It was the under 4 timeout for me. Yeah. Under 4 timeout in the second half.
I think what was really frustrating for me is I mean, we went on. There was multiple times, and by multiple, I think I mean maybe 2 or 3 times where we went on runs of like 11-0, 13-0. But then you look at the scoreboard, and we're only up by 2, 3, maybe 4. We just couldn't stretch that lead open, and that's what was so frustrating. And yeah, I think like you said, Frank, turnovers elicit such an emotional response in basketball, and when it's foul, and Purdue turns the ball over, they're not great in transition defense, and then the other team scores, and it's like it just all piles on over and over and over. So yeah,
Even like I said in the group chat, man, Fairleigh Dickinson was getting every bounce. Every ball went their way. Every bounce off the rim went their way. Every out of bounds. I mean, like I
Even the
just
commentators were saying,
Yeah,
I couldn't get over
that.
how many loose balls and how many just everything went their way. It was
what's crazy is
ridiculous.
we've been out rebounding Big Ten teams by 15, sometimes 20 or more. We only out rebounded Fairleigh Dickinson by 9. They had 11 offensive rebounds to our 5. So they were, lucky bounces. They were getting after the ball. And they had 11.
I think we had 15 offensive rebounds.
Yeah, and they had 11 steals as well. So
yeah, the steals were plentiful, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and it's just really, really un-Braden like to turn it over 7 times.
Yeah, that was the anomaly.
But
I might be.
So another question.
I was going to answer that one real quick. I might be the craziest optimist this time then for this game.
Because, the craziest, yes.
Thanks. When Fletch took that last 3 was when I knew for sure we weren't going to win that game. Because I kept thinking in the back of my head, we're going to somehow force overtime and win it in overtime and be like, man, people are going to give us so much crap for almost losing to a 16 seed. Like in my head, I'm still like,
those burn the tape and leave the stadium kind of game.
Yeah. Like especially when we got the ball back with what was it, like 30 seconds left, down 3. I thought, okay, we're going to get a 3-pointer drawn up. Fletch is going to hit it. Somebody's going to hit it. It's going to be crazy. We're going to force overtime, and it's going to be like, holy crap, that just almost happened. And then when he took that, he almost got trapped in the corner, kind of, right? Or he did get trapped in the corner. And I started getting more and more nervous. And I'm like, okay, get it out to somebody else, get some movement going and get an open look. And then he went and took the shot. I was like, that's it. That's it. Like, it's not going in, and we're done.
Well, and to stand up for Fletch, I mean, he kind of had to shoot then to give ourselves a chance. If he missed the shot, you don't want a trap corner buzzer beater.
3 seconds.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting that before that we tried to run a layup for Braden to try to draw a foul, and in my opinion, it was a foul. It just didn't get called, and the ball didn't go in. So
don't even get me started with the officiating.
Well, I mean, as a whole, I felt the officiating was, better than what you saw in the a lot of the Big Ten.
7 calls at least.
Yeah, did you like how Fletch got ran over
on that screen
and no call?
Yeah, that's been happening a lot, and
it's a common thing.
What's interesting,
yeah.
What's interesting is that the tournament as a whole has been struggling, with 3-point shooting, and so you constantly hear this, well, you have to be able to shoot, you have to be able to have good guards who can hit from outside. That's how you win the tournament. So I asked this question, and I still don't know the answer, but what changes in the tournament? It's still the same game. It's still the same sport. It's still basketball. Purdue won 29 games before the tournament. Why all of a sudden now, because Purdue doesn't have elite guards or experienced guards or has a post-centric offense, what changes? What makes it like, okay, well, their chances to win in March go down because this is what you need to win in March, when in reality we're all playing the same sport. So that narrative, I don't understand it. It drives me absolutely crazy.
I will say this. I think our brand of basketball is more consistent for the 3-point shooting woes we have seen over the last half a dozen years. I mean, we've seen this year that the 3-point, what was it? What's the analytical thing I keep? JG stats or something like that.
JG trends. Yeah.
JG trends. Yeah. Thank you.
I was going to say Jetworth, but
Do what?
JG
Wentworth. So I posted that in the chat, and they said that 3-point shooting has consistently gone down second round. And then you add in, it's gone down over the last tournaments, over the last handful of tournaments. And I think that if you're not hitting 3-pointers, the benefit of that is having an inside presence that can score and do things. But I think on the flip side of that, the problem is if your 7'4" guy is in a boxing match for 60 minutes and only a third of them are being called. And I'm not trying to put all the blame on that. There are 100 things that could have gone better in that game against FD that that would have won us the game. But I think of the Brandon Newman block on that.
Look at Damon and I. Look at that little
Yeah,
coordination. Right? We didn't even plan that. We just started spinning our drinks.
I'm thinking of the one play that blew my mind is the fast break where Brandon Newman blocked it off the backboard and they called a foul. And I'm like, where's the foul there? You know? It's things like that. Edie getting thrown off his position by 3 steps when he's going for a hook shot or trying to get a rebound. That's the type of stuff. So I think that we have a pattern that is good for March, given the 3-point shooting problems that there are, but we just need a little bit.
And to add to that as well, I think yes, we struggled hitting the 3-point. Wow, sorry, stroke. We struggled hitting 3-pointers, but something that drove me absolutely wild in that game was when we were breaking the press. If we got it to Gillis at half court, Gillis would turn and take the ball up and then just wait for everybody else. When Edie was 1-on-1 in the post with somebody that's 6'3", and he got it to him maybe once out of those times, and there was a good handful of times where I'm like, he's wide open against somebody who's 6'3". Give him the freaking ball. And I get it. It was probably at that point in the season, he's probably just like, okay, what's the game plan? Okay, get it to Braden Smith. Okay, that's what my brain's going to do. It's probably just muscle memory at that point, but it's like, God, break out of that and just see what's in front of you. But that's easy for me to say because I'm watching the game at home too. But God.
Yeah, and there have been a lot of really crazy prescriptions as to what we could have done differently. Everyone loves to say Painter can't adjust. It's just a blanket statement. And then you ask the question, well, what should he have done differently? And no one ever has an answer. That is the point you just made. That is one thing that I did see several times in that game that I think we could have capitalized on. Mm-hmm. And so that is the one thing that I thought maybe we could have looked to push the pace a little bit more.
Yeah.
However, I mean, that's something that you have to practice. We're not Michigan State. We're not Alabama. We're not Memphis. We're not these teams who look to score quickly and in transition. We're not running a pistol offense per se. We like to manufacture good shots. But yeah, I think if Mason Gillis catches the ball and you got Edie 1-on-1 in the post against a guy who he's got a foot on, you whip it out to him.
But I will say that when we were pushing the pace, that's when we had that 11-0 run in the second. Mm-hmm. And that's where I got frustrated going to the end of the game, is kind of your point, Damon, where I'm like, push the ball, like we can do this. And I was just getting more frustrated with it. But
it's like so ingrained in them, like how to run the offense, that it's almost like
it's set your offense, get it to Edie, and kick it out from there.
Yeah. It's like almost like in those moments, it's like almost impeding. But what were you going to say, Russ?
I was just going to go back to his question too. I think you answered it. I don't know if it was before we came on live or afterwards, but a lot of these 15, 16, even up if you go up to 14 or 13 seeds, they don't. I hate when people say they aren't afraid. They aren't playing like they're afraid. They're not just happy to be here. Like nobody ever shows up to a game and goes, "Hey, we're not going to try to win." So right. I hate that phrase, but there's more belief now that they can do it, right? There's one thing to be, I'm here to win it. I'm going to put my best effort on the floor. But then there's another to actually think, hey, we really have a shot to beat this 1 seed as a 16 seed, because it's now been done twice in the last 5 years. And, 15 seeds seems to happen every other year now too. Mm-hmm. So, and watered down is another phrase I've seen out there on Twitter, that college basketball is a little bit watered down. I don't like that phrase. There's just more parity. When a coach leaves now, he can literally take his whole, 4 or 5 core guys that are established winners, which is what he did at Fairleigh Dickinson. And what happened last year with St. Peter's when they had they honored the team before a baseball game or whatever, and like 3 guys were still there with no coaches because everybody else had transferred or taken new jobs. But yeah, there's just more parity in college basketball, and nothing can be taken for granted.
It's
Period.
the era of NIL and the transfer portal,
Mhm.
and I think you're going to see more of it.
Yeah, which I hope that we can take advantage of that now that I guess I feel like the NIL almost puts us on more of an even playing field with everybody else, because before you really had to recruit guys to Purdue. And of course you still have to find the right guy and everything, but you've got more tools in your arsenal now. You've got more tools in your belt to entice somebody to want to come to Purdue and play basketball, which that's something that I've always never understood. The whole oh, it's Purdue, that's why it's in West Lafayette, Indiana, that's why nobody
Oh,
wants
that
to go to
drives me
Purdue.
nuts.
And it's like Notre Dame's in freaking South Bend. Like what?
I use Bloomington,
Right.
yeah.
It's like
Bloomington isn't South Beach. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Right. They think it is.
Well,
but
and
it's-
Dylan,
Like a hood rat version of
Dylan, you're not
Detroit.
gonna like this,
Oh, no.
but that's always my argument to when people say we need better uniforms. We need better uniforms because we need to get recruits because recruits care about that stuff. Notre Dame's always my counter argument to that. Notre Dame doesn't have an issue getting football. They don't have an issue getting recruits, and they have the most plain uniforms. Penn State, they don't have a problem getting
I
recruits.
mean, those gold helmets
They have
are
very
sweet
plain
though.
uniforms.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
say
but
Notre
I'm
Dame did get the
USC
shiny helmets.
I'm going to say this, that there is a brand built with Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame style uniforms where
It's like your play outseeds your look. It's like you don't have to look fancy because your
Yeah.
play is going to do the speaking
yeah,
for you.
exactly.
Yeah,
Those brands are built on success and that style of uniform. Well, there's a reason Oregon's not a perennial power in the Pac-12.
Oh yeah,
And also they've got a billionaire as one of their board of directors, but that's
that
besides
helps.
the point. But what I'm saying is that I think the uniforms is something that is outside the box. You're doing something different to get those recruits. Where the Alabama has a wildly plain uniform that I don't think's changed since World War One, but they also win a shit ton of games.
Yeah.
Where
And he goes to visit recruits in a helicopter.
yeah, I saw that.
That was pretty
It's
cool.
crazy.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that, bro? We literally have a
Oh, hey, Walters hasn't
Yeah.
gotten started yet. Wait till
Yeah,
he breaks
true.
out the
He's
gold
gonna-
helmet.
he's gonna-
stand by, brother.
Dude,
he's
speaking
gonna be
of the,
taking players to the moon. Like, hey, you guys, literally to the moon. Like,
I sent you guys in the group chat today, but the Boiler Football Instagram today, man, I mean the picture
Yeah.
of Walter sitting back on the couch, and
He's so cool.
he's so cool.
Swag.
Like,
He's
he's
like-
such a cool guy.
he's turning Purdue football into the club that you want to get into because it looks so cool from the outside, and you're like, oh, I
Yeah.
want to be a part of that.
I mean, he's
like-
given Purdue, and I hate saying this term because I feel like I'm too old and white to say it, but I
They
mean, he's
got their
putting some
swagger
swag.
back.
He's getting some swag
Oh.
into it. All right, listen.
Old and white.
But so with all this talk, this post loss talk, one question I'd like to ask to you all is Painter too stuck in his ways? A lot of people seem to
No.
think that.
No,
Gosh, dang it,
I think
Frank.
it's
Yes.
safe to say we're a pro.
Justin, calm
Yes.
down.
Yes, he's
Hidden
stuck
press
like
on.
glue.
Oh no.
No. I mean, honestly, if there's anyone here who does think that, I would love to have this conversation. I just figured
So we
I'd
can
ask.
be berated live on.
No, I
TV.
think we're all
Yeah,
a
I-
pro painter podcast here.
I mean, from the way Twitter seems lately, I feel like we're going to get berated for saying he's not stuck in his
Well, like I
ways.
said at the beginning of the podcast,
seems to be the popular opinion.
But the thing is that he's got proof. What we go like the most post ups in a season to turn around and be the most 3-point making season.
So that is true, and I've made this point to a lot of people. The 2018 season, Purdue set a record for the most post ups in a season ever. Following that season, the Carson Klein year when we didn't have a dominant post
Carson
guy,
Klein.
Purdue set a new record for the most 3 points shot and made in a season. So I think if there's any proof that Painter is not stuck in his ways, it's
And he
that.
put a guard
It's
in
the
the
fact
lottery
that in
last year.
back-to-back-
We put a guard in the lottery last
I
year.
think Damon's
come on.
patiently waiting.
So
Go.
So from what you guys are all saying, it's like this season they really did this well. This season they really did this well. So it's like season to season, he's taking what he has and running with it. But I think the argument about like making changes or whatever, I think that's more of like in game, like making those adjustments in game. Where because like he did say, the statistically, all of these guys have shot over 40% at some point in their career. So we're going to keep shooting threes and blah, blah, blah. We're going to keep getting them open and stuff like that. And so he stuck to the game plan. And sometimes after games and, he's in those press conferences, it almost did feel like he's like, I'm sticking to my guns because my pride's a little bit too big rather than, whatever. But that's just me. I do wish that there were sometimes like a little bit more like in-game adjustments rather than, hey, these guys can shoot threes, so I'm going to keep shooting it and shooting it and shooting it and shooting it, even though we've, the last 6 games or whatever, we're like 6 for 46 right now.
Yeah, but I will go out on that limb and say that when you've got a team that wants to double and triple the biggest guy in the country, you kick it out and shoot threes. Because I think we argued this point at the beginning of the podcast, or not argued, but we talked about it a little bit. I would rather.
Oh, top of the morning to you, Chris. Hi.
Holy.
Mother Lucky Charms.
No, I'd rather take a medium percentage 3 than a low percentage 2. And I think that's Painter's thought process. I would rather see guys take 3s and miss them than take 2 steps in and make a 2 and miss them.
Well, and
that's
another point I'll make when you talk about him not making in-game adjustments this year. How many different guys went off for like 20+ points this year?
Fletch. Hold on, Fletch, Gillis,
TKR,
Edie. Oh yeah, that was against. But that, I mean, okay, that was against like Hofstra or New Orleans or whatever. But sure, I'll give that.
Still did it
because Edie was also sick that game and didn't play. But go ahead.
Yeah, I just know at one point we were talking about there was 4 different guys on the bench that had scored 20+ points in a game. He definitely rode the hot hand when he saw something was going on. With Mason Gillis, I happened to be at that game and see that where he said, "Hey, Mason's hitting some shots in the first half. We're going to drop even more for him in the second half." And he comes out and breaks a Mackey record. He doesn't get credit for those in-game adjustments. He gets credits for when we lose and miss a bunch of shots. Well, why didn't he make any adjustments?
Well, when Jenkins was going off towards the end of the season or in the Big Ten tournament, he was running plays for Jenkins.
Exactly.
Because he had a hot hand.
Going into halftime against Penn State, we were in that high ball screen right into a pull-up jumper. I mean, that was a set play for him. And the interesting thing about the Gillis, going off game, a lot of his threes, I think it was the first 5 threes that he made in that game were a result of people not leaving Edie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that's like a lot of people say talk about the in-game adjustments and he wants to stick to his game plan and I also think that he has a lot of information that we as fans don't have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he's probably seen Fletcher Lawyer hit 1,000 threes in practice. He's probably seen Braden Smith hit 1,000 threes in practice. And so he knows that if threes aren't falling, that's the exception and not the rule. And I think one thing that Painter is good at is he knows what good shots are, but he knows what good shots are for different players.
Yeah.
Like how many contested threes did Carson shoot and make? I mean, against Virginia, he hit 5 in the second half alone. He never put the reins on Carson because he knew Carson could hit that shot. I mean, it's again, if 5 more threes go in, which statistically they should have, we're not even having this conversation.
Yeah.
We're talking about our next opponent.
Week 16, Elite 8. Yeah. Yep.
But like, everyone wants to say we should have shot more mid-ranges that would have added an extra dimension. I mean, the mid-range is quickly going away in basketball. I mean, it's
not for Jalen Hood-Schifino. It's not. That's a fact.
What?
That's true.
But he's the exception to that.
I would say who's he playing this weekend?
I'd say the mid-range shot.
burn
What
dog.
is a
They
third
played
of
one more
the
game
shots
than we did.
taken? If that,
So the reason the mid range is going away is because we know through a whole bunch of data now, because now we have all sorts of data on basketball where shots were taken and whatnot. We know that is the worst shot in basketball. It's only worth 2 points, and it's a 36, 37% shot in D1.
Mhm.
So why not step out and shoot a three that has just a 35 to 37% chance of going in?
like I said,
That's worth 50% more.
So wait, you said the two
we're like in 20.
the 2-pointer, the mid range is what percentage? 36.
I think last time I checked, it was 36 and a half or so when I was having this discussion.
And you said the
on
3-pointer
Twitter.
was 35 to 37.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Brought
point
to you
per
by
So
possession.
Frank's Big
what's-
Brain.
I mean,
there's really not a difference then.
But you're
Yeah,
scoring 3
except
points
one
versus
was
three.
exactly. Yeah. So in 2016, the Warriors, who are largely considered to be the best NBA team of all time,
are they college?
set a record for the best offense ever. That same offense today, the numbers would be in the bottom half of the NBA. Like, we're in this era of offensive explosion because we're realizing this, because we're realizing that, like, hey, that like contested pull-up mid-range that guys tried to get for the majority of basketball's existence is actually a really bad shot.
Thanks, Kobe.
And so we keep breaking records every year in the NBA because guys are playing Maury ball. They're playing, Nate Oates popularized the rim and three. It's
Do you think
it's the new era of basketball.
Do you think that if we can convince Tominaga to jump into the portal and have him be our guy off the bench to come in after Fletch?
The kid's
God,
electric.
could you imagine him at Purdue, like him going off for a game at Purdue, where he would be such a fan favorite?
He'd have a statue. But
Chris would
no,
be very busy.
but that's kind of my point though. If you're going to take a 36.5% 2-pointer or a 35 to 37% 3-pointer, take the 3-pointer and get an extra point plus the momentum builder it is and getting the 3-point.
I guess for me, the data is not there because the notion is that we're not. No, listen to me before you cock your head to the side and think you're so smart. That the data for me is not there because yes, like the three, like we're taking those threes, but we're not taking enough twos, I think, to say which one would be a better shot for us to take, if that makes sense. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I don't feel like the number you can compare really, because if statistically it's only like 35 to 37% versus 36.5%, I mean, you're basically right on top of each other, but we don't take enough twos to, I feel like, compare which one's the better option. Like, obviously one brings another extra point, but whatever.
This is Frank's brain segment.
Well, let me give you real numbers here, so that way we can make, because I was just guessing. So
okay.
right around the free throw line, the D1 average is 38%, 38.1%. So from three, D1 average is 33.8%. So you're trading a 4% shot probability for 50% more points at that point. It's a no-brainer. So like if you round up to, so you're basically looking at, like 3/4 of a point per shot versus 1.2 points per shot on the perimeter.
Okay. Gotcha.
Man,
but you make a really good point in that as the floor is kind of separating, right? As teams are trying to score from the rim and from three, and only from the rim and from three, that mid-range shot is going away and is being eliminated from offenses, and that is driving down those percentages. You are correct in that. And that, that's teams are taking those as like last second, into the shot clock type of shots. Yeah. Teams are also doing that from three too, though.
David Jenkins.
Attaboy, Frank. Attaboy. Yeah. Frank's big brain.
Yep. I got a headache now from.
It's the wine. The wine is really just making the engine click tonight.
Is the whiskey?
So one thing we like to talk about is balls.
Amen,
should
brother.
we switch balls? Yeah. But
Chris
and
I
we've talked about it before. Should we switch balls?
But for
those who don't know, there are multiple balls. I think 4 different balls you can use in Division I basketball.
But isn't it
old enough to be on this chat?
Isn't it like a?
But
isn't it like a Nike thing?
Yeah, we have to do the Nike.
Yeah, they have to use Nike.
We have to do a Nike thing. Okay. So you can use Nike balls, you can use Wilson balls, and I think there are 2 more. But the Wilson
Adidas
balls or the bright
Probably
orange balls
Adidas
are
and
used in
Spalding.
both. Yeah, okay. So, but Purdue doesn't shoot well with Wilson balls. We never
Hold it
have. It's what's
together,
usually
Chris.
used in the Crossroad Classic. It's what's normally used in the tournaments. They're the big bright orange balls of the Mesa. You can stop. So that you can see them on TV.
Balls.
I've never heard anyone complain that they can't see the ball on TV. Has anyone ever said has anyone ever
I
said,
No.
literally
man,
It's
said
not
during
hockey
the
or
last
tennis.
tournament, am I nuts or is this ball wildly more orange?
Russ, you're old as
Yeah.
dirt. Can you see
did,
the ball
yeah.
or not?
I didn't know. I thought they were just imagining things. I didn't know there was a
Let's
basketball on the
swing it
court. I
over
didn't-
to our old representative of the olds and see what they think.
Geriatric freaking old folks helmet.
If Russ can see it, anybody can see it. I mean,
But no, it would be nice if we could make that switch, just so that we have a whole season under
Switch
our belts
balls.
playing with the tournament, the ball we're going to be playing with in the tournament, versus having a few days to get comfortable with a ball that we haven't touched all season long.
I will say this though. During
Balls.
the Rutgers game, we were 35% from 3, and the Ohio State game, we were 45% from 3, and those were Wilson balls. So
I just can't wonder. I can't help but wonder
can't help wonder
why we can't make an
after-
exception for the basketball. If you think about other sports, for example, like golf, right? A guy can be sponsored, head to toe in a certain apparel, or even with certain clubs, but then use a Titleist golf ball instead. Because
know that.
it's such a huge part of the equipment and the performance of the game that I think we could make some kind of move or exception to that. Or maybe it will take the NCAA saying, look, you can have your apparel deals, your sponsorship deals, whatever, but this is the basketball we're going to use for every single game in Division I NCAA basketball
well,
So-
see, then
across the board.
Can I play devil's advocate here for a little bit?
No.
Please do.
Are we making an excuse just to feel better about
No,
yeah,
because
the reason
you
Purdue lost is because of the damn balls.
No, I mean it's
Oh.
definitely a lot of the factor is what Frank was talking about, where they're playing loose, they're playing like they've got nothing to lose, but they also know that if they just chuck up shots and they get a few to go down, they could pull off an upset like they did.
They got
But-
everything down.
To switch a basketball, I mean that's like if you're a bowler saying, "Hey, you're gonna have to use a different bowling ball for the championship game, the championship match," right? Like
Yeah.
if football they had a different turf for the final game. Like we've seen how much football games can be affected when everybody's slipping, right? Because the turf is messed up or whatever. Like if they tried out a brand new turf that you hadn't played on all year for the national championship game, it would affect things, would it not?
Yeah.
So I don't know why they can't say it's a basketball. It's very simple. We're going to give all you a piece of the pie for Wilson sponsoring NCAA basketballs. Just like TV deals, you're going to get a piece of the pie. And we're going to use the same basketball for every single game.
Or they just use the same basketball and then slap whatever logo. I mean, just like put a Nike logo on it. But then I guess if it ends up, but like what?
what kind of hilljack thought process is that?
I don't know. I'm trying. Okay.
The
But,
craziest
like,
thing
what
is
It's called House of Cards.
But like, what makes the difference between a Wilson ball and a Nike ball? Like, what does one do that
I
the
think
other doesn't, or
the
vice versa?
tackiness, probably.
they feel different. Different
Yeah.
balls feel different.
When
in
the
your hands.
balls are in your hand, it feels a little different.
This is what I was hoping for when I brought that up.
Texture, surface,
The-
how
the
smooth or
Consistency.
rough the
Oh.
surface
Veiny-ness.
is,
Wait,
the grippiness. Like can you get a good grip on it?
It
Or
Or when you're
rolls around
Russ's
in your
age,
hand.
And we're still going. Okay.
oh, we could go all day, Damon. Don't
But,
threaten us.
I have
Was
the
it one
brain
of
of
you-
a 12-year-old boy. So.
was it one of you all, like maybe Frank, that pointed out it was the different Wilson basketball from the Big Ten tournament to the NCAA tournament? Like, how do you even mess that up?
How does that
Like-
work?
What?
Like, how do you even do that?
They're freaking Wilson basketball.
Well, this is a family program.
Why does Owen Wilson
Not
have so
anymore.
much power in what basketballs we play with in the tournament? That's all. That's what I want to
Oh
know.
wow!
Wow.
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 Is that you think that's what he's saying while he's watching? He's like, "Wow, look at them playing with my basketballs. Wow."
What are
Coming
we
in a
doing?
little hot. That's terrible.
Train driving through here.
Somebody's driving the
Chris-
Boilermaker
Chris
Chris
special right
lives
outside Chris's
right
house right
next
now.
to a train track.
So on that subject,
What subject?
there's been a lot of
Bring us back to
speculation.
earth, Frank.
Mike's trying to bring
No. There's been a ton of speculation about what this team looks like next year, personnel wise. I think every single player on our roster has been speculated, as to possibly being, in the transfer portal.
How much you want to
What do
bet
we
Chris
think?
is
What
getting
is-
Taco
what is-
Bell right now? Sorry.
Yeah, probably. But I
He
would
totally
love to get
is.
your all's opinion on two questions. Does Edie come back? If so, what does our roster look like? If not, what does our roster look like? Russ, what do you think?
Thanks. I get to go first.
I just saw you nodding, so you look like you were ready
Oldest
to
goes
answer this
first.
Yeah,
question.
so I think I posed what I think are the two maybe more likely options in our group chat, which was if Edie comes back, I think we have to see one or two guys, maybe even three guys transfer. And I think we have to address our guard depth. To have a 9-man rotation where only three guys play 90% of the 1 and 2 guard positions, like that's nuts. To be that deep rotation wise, but only have three guys handle the majority of, and really two guys handle the majority of the backcourt sets. Like that's crazy. So I think if Edie comes back, we've got to shift the makeup of the team a little bit. If he doesn't come back, then I think there's a good chance Heidi stays, and you see Brandon Newman play a little bit more of the 2 guard, and we're gonna have to still bring in a point guard. What did I just miss?
I missed it too. I have no idea.
The chat is great.
Damon, it's look
What?
It's your wife.
Do you see the chat? It's your wife.
Yeah, I know. I have her Facebook pulled up right here. That was me.
Aw.
I got a fake. We got a ghost viewer. I'm sorry.
I thought
Our
your
numbers-
wife.
our
I thought
numbers
your
are
wife just
inflated.
came off the top rope and just. Killed us. Do you appreciate that reference, Damon?
Yeah, I did. That was
No,
great.
you didn't. No.
I made a reference like that in a work meeting last week.
Russ being old.
I said something about I said something about Jeff Hardy from the top rope, and everyone just kind of looked around, and my boss was like, "Is that one of your wrestling references?"
Oh,
Is that what you're
wrestling?
wrestling?
And I was
Damon,
like,
this
"Yeah."
isn't time for your wrestling.
Yeah.
But Russ, I think you're right in that we kind of have a lopsided roster. We're front court heavy right now, and we could, especially with David Jenkins, leaving. So, Edie made an interesting comment in his post game interview. He said, "If money weren't involved, it wouldn't be a decision," or something like that. And the more I thought about that, the more I think he was trying to send a message, so to speak. He was trying to let Purdue know, hey, I think I've earned some money. And I don't disagree with him, at all. But I check mock drafts pretty frequently, and right now he's a late second rounder, so no guaranteed money. And I've heard Brian Cardinal talk about it. Playing in the G League is not fun. It's not fun at all. They don't get paid very well. You're going and playing, and there's kids on a high school field trip, or elementary school field trip coming to watch you play. They're not paying attention. I mean,
So can I be devil's advocate and think that maybe he
No.
was talking the other way? That
What do you mean?
So hold on, I gotta get my thoughts right here. I know what I'm trying to say. I just got
Come on, Mr.
But it-
Devil.
wow. So instead of getting Purdue to dump more into the NIL, maybe he was saying
Purdue to dump more.
that maybe he's saying that I'm not going to make as much as the G League, and I'm going to get more at Purdue, so I'm going to stay.
Well, okay, it could be. Well, it was confirmed by one of our former guests, Kyle Charters, that there is some truth to it being difficult to get NIL money being from Canada. So,
But that's
that-
allegedly changing. There's apparently
it's in the works. But to play devil's advocate again, when you look at someone like Oscar Tshiebwe, who was National Player of the Year and came back, his draft stock has only fallen because he's a year older and it didn't help him anymore. Now he got millions of dollars from Kentucky. And so this will be an interesting time for Purdue to see if we're willing to play that NIL, how much money to get you to stay game. But I will say, I believe I said it on here last week, if Edie leaves, we will be okay. Like
Yeah, I
Purdue will
100%
be fine
agree. Yeah. But
because
that
we
said,
have enough talent
yeah,
to
that
be
said, the
competitive.
Sheway comparison I don't think is good enough because Sheway was a lottery pick, and now he's at the bottom of the second round, where Edie right now is a bottom second round pick. He can only go up. You know what I mean?
Sheboy was a mid-second rounder last season. That was the only reason he came
Mother-
back. Yeah, he was a he was a mid,
That was
he was
good.
a mid-second round guy, and that was when NIL was still new. And I had a big Kentucky fan tell me, like, I think Sheboy is going to come back because he'll get more money from NIL than he will, in the NBA. And I thought that was absolutely insane. I'm like, this guy is crazy. There's no way Sheboy is going to come back and that Kentucky's going to give him more money than he would get in the NBA. And that's exactly what happened.
But that said, Sheway's game is way more comparable to the NBA than a 7'4" Yao Ming in 2023. If this is 2004, I think Edie leaves all day, every day, and twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
But right now, it just doesn't make sense for Edie to leave. I know that he's at the top of the game, he's doing well, National Player of the Year contention, all that stuff. But from a 10,000 foot view, Edie just doesn't translate to the NBA. So why not come back? What's the worst that can happen? You still don't get drafted?
Well,
I think he comes back.
So devil's advocate again. I think Edie can have a bigger NBA career than a lot of guys are giving him credit for. And what's interesting is that there's some scouts that I follow on Twitter, and they're starting to talk about him. And they're talking about Edie,
Like,
and
kill my
especially
dream.
well, especially in the last 10 games of the season, Edie was switching more. Like we weren't especially like the Rutgers game comes to mind. They were switching him a lot. They weren't playing drop coverage. He was switching out onto guards and actually doing a good job. We're seeing a lot better lateral movement. He's 7'4". He's super competitive. He's really good in the post. The biggest question I think that they're asking is how well can he pass? Which we haven't seen a lot of that. And they're saying if he gets double teamed in the NBA, he's not going to be able to fight through two NBA caliber bodies and fight through a double team. He's going to have to make some good passes. But
If he swings those bows, he will.
well, but I think that a lot. I mean, I do agree with you, Russ, in that if Edie stays, we probably see minimum one departure, and that's just because we have too many talented players and not enough minutes to go around.
I think we have.
First and TKR. I mean, those guys are probably 25 to 30-minute players on most other teams in the Big Ten, maybe in the country. So,
but no player has ever left Purdue.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, I think Chris's mic kind of cut out there, but
you said no players ever left Purdue.
No, he says that there was a second part.
I know there was.
The second part was that no player has left Purdue and has ended up in a better situation.
Yeah,
and I think he means with transferring out. And Painter said that a lot. And Nogel, for those who don't know, he's playing in Mexico now, and he's learned to shoot and not
right-handed free throws.
So,
yeah.
He swapped hands too. You look at Matt Harms, he went, from playing 20 minutes and averaging 10 points to playing 20 minutes and averaging 10 points in another uniform.
Got him.
Ronnie, I love Matt Harms. I wish he would have stayed. Ronnie Johnson, he never materialized at Auburn. Who am I missing here? Sure, I'm missing somebody.
I don't think there's been
Smotherman.
Kendall Stevens.
Well, Smotherman was asked to
Kendall
leave the team.
Kendall Stevens is an interesting one because maybe he ended up in a better situation. He ended up with the Twins.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nevada.
the Martin brothers.
Yeah. They had a really, really good team. So that's one that maybe but he was another scenario where we just had too many guys that were playing that same position that, we just didn't have enough minutes to go around. But that's one thing Purdue kind of missed this year was that guy who you just can't leave open.
Yeah.
That's what
But
Kendall
also
Stevens
at the
makes me
same
think of.
time, we've still got the red shirt. I mean, was it Jack Benter?
Well, he's not. He's a 2024, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
2024.
never mind.
You're
Yeah.
ahead of you, Chris.
But
Is Miles the only one coming in next season then?
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
And
well,
I mean, and
never
honestly,
mind.
we
I'll
don't.
shut up and go F myself.
And we only have one senior on the roster too, and David Jenkins. So, but just think
I
about next year's team. Think about like I'm gonna call them locks, the guys who are probably coming back. We have Gillis as a lock, Morton as a lock, Braden, Fletch as locks. So those are the only two I'm gonna call locks right now.
Well, didn't we say first? And that's might be the walk on you were thinking of, Chris, because his brother's walking on next year, right? Or is he already walked on?
No, I think it's next year. No, I
Yeah.
thought Benter was coming in next year with Colvin, but I was
Yeah,
wrong.
so I think first is a lock, or at least leaning lock if you put it in categories. I think TKR is maybe the biggest risk as far as got significant minutes as a big. I think he's one of the bigger risks.
I'd say Heedy is the bigger risk.
Did you
We just
say
talked about
Heidi
Edie.
or E-
Heidi.
Cam Heidi,
Heedy,
yeah.
whatever. I don't know. how
Zach
to say it.
Zach Heedy will come back for
Old Zach Heidi?
Heedy.
what they
So
put in your
Chris,
Baja
if
Blast
somebody
there, buddy.
I have so many jokes, but I can't say them on.
Chris, you may be right about him, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him as that like freshman who plays 7 minutes a game next season. Especially with Morton as a senior, I can kind of see him being the last guy off the bench.
Yeah.
But one big question for me, and I think is going to be a really pivotal player, is Newman. In his post game interview, he said that's something he's going to have to think about. Again, we talked about it before, but like I hate the guys. It's like right after they just lost their first tournament game, they're in their faces asking them, "Hey, are you going to come back? You're going to come back? What are you going to do?" And he said, I mean, like that's something I'm going to have to think about. Where Edie kind of said, "I don't even have an opinion. I'm not talking about that right now." Newman flat out said, "I'm going to have to think about that." So to me, that says he's thinking about it. So
Yeah.
I
That's
don't
also on the
want to see a
heels of-
departure of Brandon Newman.
Yeah, that's also on the heels of one of the most devastating losses you can go through as a player. So, you're a human being, and it's kind of a human reaction. A lot of our fan base kind of experienced that. You saw that on Twitter of like, I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. Like, and I can see that also being a product of frustration and not him actually thinking about leaving. If that makes sense. He
Yeah.
could just be like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I got to think about that. This is ridiculous. It's, the way he's grinded, the ups and downs of his career at Purdue, from getting freshman of the year or freshman of the week honors as a freshman to kind of a pretty big sophomore slump, to taking all season to really have a significant role start to get carved out towards the end of this year. And then all of it gets smacked in the face by losing to a 16 seed as a 1 seed. I can see him being a little frustrated. You know what? Yeah, I guess I got to think about that. Whatever. Next question.
So my answer for the if he stays or goes thing, because I've been waiting patiently. Sorry, just kidding. But anyway, I think honestly, like I am okay if Zach Edey leaves. I am excited to see what William Berg can do. Another 7'3" guy who can shoot. He's got a mid-range jumper. He's got a potentially a 3-point shot as well. And if he can get a post game and also be able to shoot threes, that'd be pretty exciting. I would love to see that. And I think TKR would obviously get more minutes than Berg. And I think TKR is definitely has the ability to be a great 5 for us. So I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. And maybe I'm just in the minority, but I feel like Edie staying almost makes things just a lot more complicated and a lot more clunky than if he goes to the NBA. I love Edie. I love what he's done for Purdue. I love the spotlight he's put on Purdue. I just think that there's a lot to comb through if he does stay.
And I'm glad you said that, because I've thought it. I just haven't put it into words, or or written it down or anything, or put it on Twitter. But I think short term, like having Edie come back,
Sounds great.
yeah, it sounds great. It may be one more fantastic season with Edie, but long term, Because you think about it, if Edie comes back, we have Edie as a senior, Morton as a senior, Gillis as a senior, Newman, fingers crossed, as a senior. And then what happens next? Well, I mean, if Edie comes back, we are having at least one, maybe two, maybe three guys go out. That doesn't bode well for the future. So, like I said, if Edie leaves, we will be okay. We have a fantastic team who is capable. I mean, and now, we talk about post loss Braden. What's next year's Braden going to look like after having led a team as a point guard, playing 30 minutes a game, taking them to a number one seed, winning a Big Ten tournament, getting to the tournament, and then getting smacked in the face? Like I truly see this team responding how Tony Bennett's team did in 2018, 2019.
Especially considering that Braden was kind of nursing and rehabbing an injury going into last offseason too. So I definitely think, if Edie comes back, or even maybe if he doesn't come back, we've got to address that roster composition, question that I kind of brought up earlier, because how many times do we see too, when they pop up the starting lineups across from us, 4 guards, 1 forward, 3 guards, 2 forwards, centers are almost a thing of the past in college basketball. It's almost like the NBA game is leaking over into the college game, to where we have to address the small ball at least a little bit more, even if Edie comes back. And if he doesn't come back, I think we definitely get more athletic, to sit there and Edie's improved. He's shown that he can switch a little bit better. His footwork has gotten better, but who's better at footwork, First or Edie? TKR or Edie? Gillis or Edie? Heidi or Edie? So like, you're going to see our bigs get more mobile. And then I think you see, obviously, Colvin add some athleticism to the backcourt, some young athleticism to the backcourt, and you see us match up a little bit better with those small ball lineups.
Yeah, and then and then that following year, I can't remember I think Cannon Catchings he's another small forward, or a forward,
Mhm.
6'8",
Guard forward, depending on what
5-star.
Those athletic
recruit.
wings.
Yeah. So, count them 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. What a jump, by the way. Side note, Cannon Catchings. My God, what a jump in those polls. Or the ranking system. Holy crap. So yeah, 2024 looks really exciting. But yeah, honestly, my opinion, I love Zach Edey. I love what he's done for Purdue. Very thankful for the spotlight he's put on Purdue this year. Thankful for his time at Purdue, but I think that him staying just creates a lot of like junk and clunk to have to work through. Of course.
Yeah, but that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there are not a whole lot. I mean, and it's crazy to me. You guys know I live in Louisville. For anyone who doesn't know, I live in the city of
You live in
Louisville.
Louisville?
To
His
see that
address is-
basketball team, they have 4 guys leave, maybe 5 guys leaving.
Yeah, I saw
and just
5.
in the era of the transfer portal, in the era of NIL, Purdue has been pretty fortunate for the most part that we don't have 2, 3, 4 guys leaving like some teams do. I mean, how many inbound transfers did Illinois take this year? They got Terrence Shannon, they got Dane Danja, they got Matt Meyer from Baylor. So at least 3, at least 3 transfers coming in. But one thing I'd like to end on here, when you look at the elite centers from the Big Ten over the recent years, you look at Luka Garza, Kofi Coburn, Edey, Trace Jackson Davis. I put Trevion Williams in there. They combine for 1 Sweet 16 appearance, right? So you have 5 first-team All-Americans, 4 Big Ten regular season tournament champions, 2 National Player of the Year, assuming Edey gets that. It's just crazy. But to counter-argue that, why didn't the guard-centric teams of the Big Ten excel? If the recipe is you need guards, why didn't Penn State excel? Why didn't Northwestern excel? Why didn't Illinois excel?
Well, I think you saw them, and that's the trouble, I think, with the Big Ten, basketball product being what it is, as football on the court, right? Football, on a basketball court, which you have those teams that are guard centric and they struggle in the Big Ten throughout the season, right? They struggle to get a higher seed. So Penn State, Northwestern, Maryland, they all had those 1 and 2 seeds on the ropes, but when it came down to it, they just got outplayed. So had they been a 3 seed or a 4 seed, I think they'd be in the Sweet 16. But when you decide to go that route in the Big Ten and be guard centric and play smaller and get bullied by the Purdue's and the Wisconsins, then that's going to drop your seed in the tournament, and you're going to have much tougher matchups coming out the gate. So I think that was a factor.
Well, and our friend of the podcast, former guest Rayfield Davis, made that point too, and that you have to have that dominant post player to excel in the Big Ten. And if you want to get to the tournament, you have to excel in the Big Ten. But then our style of play doesn't necessarily translate. The question I have in response to that is why does the Big Ten seem to do so well in non-conference? Seems like every year we do really, really well in non-conference, and then conference play comes around, then we just beat up on each other. Like that's the story every year. Like what do we have? Illinois ranked, Wisconsin ranked, Purdue ranked, Indiana ranked,
Ohio State at one point in time this year was ranked.
Yeah. Michigan State ranked, Maryland ranked.
Yeah,
all pre-conference. You know, Big Ten ACC. Didn't we win the Big Ten ACC challenge?
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's a real factor to have to play no name, one bid conference, you know, playing on house money teams versus a Power 5 team. You know, the wins that we've had that have been impressive are against Power 5 teams that play a similar style that what we might play, but we have better bigs. We can shoot better. But we go play Fairleigh Dickinson or a St. Peter's, and they're going to throw something completely different at us. They're going to throw up some prayers, and they're going to get lucky.
So does that mean we can't adjust?
It means what we were talking about earlier, that if we shoot well below our average, we're done.
Yeah.
I mean, and Painter asked that question when someone called into the Painter show and asked him about, you know, no team with a dominant post player or a post-centric offense has made it very far in the tournament in recent years. And his response was, you know, should I not give the ball to my best player? I mean, and he just said Purdue's been fortunate to have really, really good post players. And he didn't directly say it, but he sort of alluded to it. It's not something he's necessarily seeking out. It's just they just keep coming. And so when you have a guy like Caleb Swanigan, like Isaac Haas, like AJ Hammonds, like Zach Edey, like Trevion Williams, who wants to come to Purdue, I mean, how do you say no? But we also need more Jaden Ivies, Carson Edwards to balance them out. You know, more Ryan Kleins, Dakota Mathias's, more Braden
Something
Smiths.
to keep them honest.
Yeah. And the majority of good bigs too, and especially in the Big Ten, they stay for 3 or 4 years. So it's easier to recruit and kind of stockpile those guys and have them redshirt, have them play 1 or 2 seasons where they're playing 8 to 15 minutes, and then they develop into a starter / 25, 30-minute guy. Whereas if you go recruit those guards that people think you need to be successful in March, well, you've got to be successful recruiting those guys every single year because they're going to be gone after a year or two. So he talked about, you know, building a team around kill the dragon mentality and feed the post mentality has made it easier to recruit more consistently. But let's not act like he hasn't recruited talented guards either. You know, he put Jaden Ivey in the lottery. Carson Edwards and Ryan Klein had one of the best, you know, tournaments that a backcourt duo has had through the Elite Eight.
Dakota Mathias is tearing it up in the G League right now.
And Etuan Moore had a fairly solid NBA career. Just because he wasn't the Steph Curry, it's still a lot to be said to go 8, 9, 10 years in the league.
Yeah,
doesn't happen. Yeah. I mean, and as Painter always says, 90% of the players in the NBA are role players. You know, and Etuan Moore was a good role player for I think 8 years. I mean, he did start some games, but yeah, he was a good reliable role player for 8 or 9 years, and that doesn't happen. You know, it doesn't happen often.
I remember even hearing Zion when Zion was a rookie talking about how much he appreciated Etuan being that mentor for him when he was on the Pelicans, when Etuan was a part of the Pelicans too, which was cool to hear. So, yeah, I don't know. March is just a crapshoot anyway. So
we'll figure it out. It's a 6% chance of making it to the Final Four, 82% chance of not even getting to the tournament.
How many more days until what's Purdue's first football game? September 1st?
Something like that. Spring ball starts next week.
Too many days.
So they had a practice today.
Yeah.
Oh, where they have
which according to my source went very well.
164 days to
Good.
football.
Very excited.
Which I saw our opening game is a noon game, is a noon kickoff right now. I don't like
Dude,
that.
for me, noon games stink. I got to get up at like 6:30 just to make it there in time.
Yeah, I hate that.
Can we poke the
Selling
bear
my
a little bit
tickets
too?
for September 1st.
I don't like where this is going.
When you talk about chances of something happening, what are the chances of both your men's and women's team losing in the NCAA tournament on the same day to the same opposing university?
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
Oh,
Nerds.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
It just wasn't a good weekend for the state of Indiana in basketball whatsoever. So, Indiana, man, we got to pull together. We're supposed to be the basketball state. So what the hell?
Hey, if Shrewsbury goes to Notre Dame, I guarantee you the Indiana college teams will improve.
Did
Oh,
you guys
wow.
see Rick Pitino? Not to keep us off track or anything. So Rick Pitino's at St. John's now. Took that job. He's pulling the old Coach Prime. He said a lot of players probably won't be back because they're not a good fit for me. So pulling the old Coach Prime.
Him being in New York is so fitting.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
honest, and this is
Yeah.
going to be the unpopular opinion of the group. I like Rick.
I don't have. I mean,
He's a little shady.
I'm
but,
very
I mean,
neutral of
I
Rick
like-
Pitino.
I like-
He's
I like
not a
this
problem
coach.
for
Oh,
me.
I'm a
Yeah,
huge
yeah,
Rick
he's
Pitino
fun.
fan.
Okay.
I
great
love
suits.
I love his defensive scheme. Like everything,
And the strippers.
everything's all
and-
about deflections.
I
Like
love
he
how
wants-
I'm over here be like, guys got great suits. Frank's like, yeah, great schemes, great defensive schemes.
Damon's like hookers.
No, I mean,
said
yeah, I
strippers.
mean,
Oh,
Allegedly.
he's not a guy I
Tomatoes
want to be
model.
friends with per se
Allegedly.
for what he might bring around me. I'm sure he's just good coach.
He's like Bobby
you know.
Knight. So he's like Bobby Knight, right? Like you don't want to be around the guy, but I guess he can coach okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Punches
not
players.
sure Bobby Knight could even coach
Punches
okay. I think he was
allegedly.
blessed with some really good players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about
Cool.
that
Well,
time.
boys, that was a good one. Look at that. Huh?
That was
Yeah. Well, if you're still tuning in, I appreciate you. For anybody that's tuning in on Facebook tonight, thank you for checking us out. We appreciate it as well. To everybody on Twitter,
Glad to have you back, Damon. It
YouTube
was-
as well.
the shit show last.
yeah,
Yeah.
glad to
I
have
needed-
Damon back. Ooh.
I needed that break, but it's great to be back. Sucks that I'm back talking about the end of the season. And honestly, we weren't as a podcast prepared for this to be the end of the season. So as far as episodes going forward, we have some ideas in the works.
We're gonna wing it.
Nothing solidly set out yet. So we'll make some announcements to that in the next probably week or so after we talk about it. We've got some different ideas here and there. So we definitely want to stay consistent. We don't want to just shut down until September.
Yeah.
Don't want to do that. So, if anything, it may just become bi-weekly or monthly even. Just depends on what's going on. So we'll talk about it. We'll get back to you guys. We'll make an announcement. But again, super appreciative of the love and support you guys have shown me and my wife. She got to read all those awesome messages you guys sent. So shout out to everybody that responded to that. Purdue fans, IU fans, everybody that's personally messaged me. Super appreciative of that. So it may suck that Purdue lost, but it's always a good time to be a Boilermaker. And you guys have shown that in a lot of different ways. And we're going to get ready for football. We're going to enjoy the leading up to that. And I'm excited for football because it seems like that media team is going to be in the football program constantly. So I'm excited to see what kind of content they come up with. I think it's going to be great. And we'll send you guys an update as soon as we know something. So boiler up, hammer down, and thank you, Coach Payne and the rest of the team for a great season.
Boiler up.